Hi everyone, it's the Lone Wolf. Welcome back to the channel. The wise man learns from someone else's mistakes. The smart man learns from his own, and the stupid one never learns. Throughout my teens here in England, my siblings and I would have the daily ritual on school nights of tuning into The Simpsons at 6 PM without fail. I have some fantastic memories of those days, as the show was really funny, and even now I look back with a lot of fondness. I was oblivious at the time to some of the underlying beta male messages underpinning the show. For example, Homer works at the nuclear power plant as a safety technician but is a complete idiot, whereas Marge is the fabric of the family, and without her everything seems to fall apart. Putting that aside though, I remember distinctly the characters of Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure in those early series during the mid to late 90s. I would say that Hutz was my favourite to watch, the ambulance-chasing lawyer with questionable ethics and lack of a moral compass, but despite this he is always hired by The Simpsons as legal counsel. These characters were portrayed by talented voice actor Phil Hartman, who you may remember from Christmas favourite Jingle All the Way, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Phil played Howard's annoying neighbour Ted that is constantly trying to get on with his wife. It's only recently that I found out that Phil is no longer with us, and delved a bit further into his life and background. He was a talented comedian, voice actor, impressionist, and was universally loved by those who knew him. Sadly, his personal life was plagued by problems, particularly concerning the women in his life. His relationship history is a treasure trove of valuable advice for men, lessons we can all make use of to inform our lives. In addition to his aforementioned pursuits, though, Phil was a talented graphic designer, having studied at Cal State Northridge, and produced many art covers for bands such as Poco and Crosby, Stills and Nash, before joining an LA improv group called the Groundlings in 1975. Fellow Groundlings member Patrick Bristow attested to Hartman's gentlemanly nature, saying he was everybody's big brother. His work with the Groundlings led him to performing a big gig on Saturday Night Live in 1986, setting a record for participating in 153 episodes. SNL creator Lorne Michaels said that his nickname was The Glue, as he held the show together and was very generous and low maintenance. This low-key attitude would contribute to the disaster that was his personal life. His first marriage to Gretchen Lewis in 1970 was brief, and his second to real estate agent Lisa Strain in 1982 ended less than 3 years later. Strain mentioned that he would disappear emotionally. Phil's body was there, but he'd be in his own world. That passivity made you crazy. And when I'd protest, he'd say, "You're getting in the way of my career, and this is what I am, and that's what it's going to be like." Sadly, Phil will not learn his lesson, as we'll see in a moment. Personally, his aloofness and insular nature when away from the limelight suggests that he could switch on when work demanded it, and I believe that the man was entitled to withdraw when the time and situation allowed. If that's the way he was, i.e. a recluse when necessary, why should that be a problem? Everyone is allowed their me time. If anything, and I don't know this for certain, he was probably busting his ass coming up with new material, but that's just my own speculation. The most tragic phase of Phil's life would begin when he got married for the third time. He met swimsuit model Bryn Omdahl on a blind date in 1986. A friend of the couple in the early days of the marriage said that Phil had never had a babe before, and she was it for him. He married his dream girl. If you ask me, he was blinded, excuse the pun, and didn't stop to think critically. He should have drawn on his prior marital experience. Omdahl, formerly known as Vicky, had changed her name about 7 times, and was described by former school friends as just another student, an ordinary young lady, and someone who was always looking to find herself. She was a high school dropout, a divorcee, model, and telephone operator who subsequently moved to California to take acting classes. She was infected by a powerful insecurity, and this had not abated by the time she and Hartman wed in 1987. Friends described her as intimidated by Phil, a confident guy on the way up. The couple lived in a Manhattan apartment where Bryn looked after their 2 young children and took acting classes, while Phil worked on Saturday Night Live. In the opening credits to SNL, Hartman and Bryn could be seen sitting in a booth, whose face was never shown. Bryn complained to her friend Susan Stadner that, "I kept trying to get my face on camera, but the damn director kept telling me to turn away. I was so frustrated. This is unbelievable to me. But then again, here you have a woman who's made a living out of commodities that she didn't have to work for. Models are chosen based on their looks, their beauty, something that is ultimately decided by genetics and luck. She dropped out of high school, so obviously never worked towards her finals to obtain her diploma. It seems to me she was always looking for a shortcut to Easy Street. It's no surprise then that she tried to sponge off Hartman's success and stick her nose into his show, a show that he had worked damn hard to get on by virtue of his own comic prowess and graft. I hate this leech-like behaviour and jealousy. It really does get my back up, and I urge you all to watch out for it in your own life. There is a correlation between this example and the one I covered in the video about F. Scott Fitzgerald. Both Zelda Fitzgerald and Bryn Omdahl were jealous of their husband's success and wanted some of their own, without finding their own career path. Zelda had modest success as a writer, albeit using material from her marriage, whereas Bryn tried to become an actor. I find the similarity between both examples uncanny, especially seeing as frustration was a cornerstone of both marriages. Indeed, frustration would be a common theme of Hartman's marriage to Bryn, as LA friend Shelley Curtis attested. She was very lost in the Phil Hartman game, and also evidenced her insecurity with a number of cosmetic surgeries, although there is some speculation that Hartman supported these. The tension was mounting in the marriage as fast as the accolades for Hartman's talent were coming in. Phil's second wife, Strain, evidenced Bryn's ability to throw tantrums and hissy fits to create drama. The cruel irony is not lost on me, for not only did Phil have to create drama out of nothing as part of his profession, he also had to deal with it in his personal life as well. Strain wrote Hartman a letter in 1988 congratulating him on the birth of his son, but Bryn returned 4 pages of the most hideous vitriol you can imagine, stating that if she contacted Hartman again, she would rip her eyes out. She warned Phil about the woman he was married to, but he just wanted to do whatever he could to make the marriage work. To be fair, Hartman told her that he was partly to blame for the diatribe, as he had told Bryn that Strain had been his soulmate, a dumb thing to say to an insecure, jealous individual, but nonetheless I don't see why Phil took ownership of it in the first place. It turned out that Hartman had been privy to an earlier draft of the letter that was even more nasty and hurtful. Phil was making about $50,000 per episode on news radio, and had expressed a wish to retire to Catalina Island as part of a 3-year plan, stressing to his wife that if she could just hang on for a couple more years, they would get to be together all the time. Now that's a loser move right there, sacrificing his own career and existence purely to satisfy her demands for his time. How neurotic and selfish is that? She was demanding all of his time, that most precious of commodities, such that he would have to retire from his passion, his career, his life. How crazy can you get? How entitled an attitude. Lawyer Stephen Small, a friend of Hartman's, mentioned that the comic once told him, "I go into my cave and she throws grenades to get me out." Is a man not allowed his own space, his own den, time to think and reflect and be alone? How tormenting it must have been to fight fires over and over again, day after day. Did it not occur to him that her looks would fade, and all he would be left with is an empty vassal, a shell of a person with no interior, no personality, no true north, no compassion, just an argumentative leech? Learn from these lessons, guys. Friends of the couple said that their arguments were fueled by Bryn's alcohol and drug problems, not to mention her temper, in addition to Phil's habit of withdrawing into himself when she went into a rage, often going to sleep and leaving her to cool down alone. Is it not your right to do this if you don't want to argue? If you want time alone away from the aggravation? Not to mention the fact that if he got worked up himself, he might have lashed out, and we all know about the laws concerning that type of behaviour and the activities and the consequences for men. Running away and finding his own space was probably the best and only strategy to get some solace. Sadly though, on May 28th, 1998, the tumultuous relationship would reach its destructive climax. Bryn and Phil had an argument during which he threatened to leave her if she started using drugs again, after which he retired to bed. Whilst he slept, Bryn entered the room at 3 a.m. with a .38 caliber handgun and shot Phil twice in the head and once in the side. He was killed at 49 years old by his intoxicated, jealous, insecure, and coked-up wife. She would later lock herself in the bedroom and self-terminate after informing 2 friends of what she had done, in the process making orphans of their 2 children. The reaction to Phil's passing was one of shock and bewilderment, as the man was beloved by many and renowned for his talent, professionalism, and generosity. Many tributes were paid by members of the acting and show business community, and rehearsals for The Simpsons were postponed on the day of his passing, as was that night's performance by the Groundlings. So what are the key lessons we can learn from the example of Phil Hartman? Firstly, one should follow their passions to their end point, as years of hard work got him his record-breaking gig on SNL. Phil also had other hobbies such as playing the guitar, driving, sailing, flying, and marksmanship. It's great to have a lot of strings to your bow, and you should always strive to be the best you can in all of your pursuits. Next, always be good to the people around you who deserve it. Phil was cherished by those in his field and was respected for his generosity and sense of fun. Always treat those in your life well that deserve it and foster positive, mutually beneficial working relationships with as many people as you can. Furthermore, you should honour and cherish the few people in your life who are true friends and treat them like gold. With regards to women in relationships, never accommodate women that won't let you put in 100% to your career, won't give you space, hassle you, and most certainly never get married. Phil never learned his lesson here and married a complete and utter psychopath that would ultimately rob him of his time, freedom, and finally his life. We have seen throughout the popular culture and society that women can destroy you, take your children, your money, your life's work, and now I've shown you how they can literally rob you of your precious existence in cruel and vindictive fashion. Carefully screen any woman you date and make sure that they are not your main priority in life. Use tact when dating and be clear on your position from the start. Avoid jealous, hateful, insecure, and tyrannical women, and as soon as the warning signs appear, get out. It may not mean losing your life literally as in this example, but it could certainly mean losing your life for all intents and purposes. Many men going their own way can attest to this from painful prior experience. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Lone Wolf. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe on your way out, and comment down below. Thanks for listening, and until next time, take care.